What were the causes of the Boxer Rebellion? This is the first of two videos telling the story of the Boxer Rebellion. This first part explains the build-up to the uprising and the causes as to why the rebellion occurred at the end of the 19th century. The Boxer Rebellion, also known as the Boxer Uprising, was an anti-foreign, anti-imperialist and anti-Christian uprising in northern China from 1899 until 1901. It occurred towards the end of the Qing dynasty and was conducted by the Society of Righteous and Harmonious Fists. They were referred to in English as Boxers due to many of the members of the society being practicing members of Chinese martial arts, which at that time was usually referred to as Chinese boxing. This uprising was eventually defeated by the Eight-Nation Alliance of foreign powers. Following the First Sino-Japanese War of 1894-5, villagers in northern China feared the expansion of foreign spheres of influence and resented the extension of privileges to Christian missionaries who used those privileges to shield their followers. In the years leading up to 1898, the north of China experienced several natural disasters, including the flooding of the Yellow River and droughts. The Boxers blamed these natural disasters on foreign and Christian influence. In 1899, the movement spread across Shandong province and the North China plain, destroying foreign property such as railways while attacking or murdering Christian missionaries as well as Chinese Christians. These events came to a head in June 1900 when Boxer fighters, convinced they were invulnerable to foreign weapons, converged on Beijing with the slogan "Support the Qing government and exterminate the foreigners." Diplomats, missionaries, soldiers and some Chinese Christians took refuge in the legation quarter, which was besieged by the Boxers. The Eight-Nation Alliance, comprising of American, Austro-Hungarian, British, French, German, Italian, Japanese and Russian soldiers, moved into China to lift the siege, and on the 17th of June stormed the Dagu Fort in Tianjin. Empress Dowager Cixi, who had been initially hesitant, supported the Boxers, and on the 21st of June issued an imperial decree that was a de facto declaration of war on the invading powers. Chinese officialdom was split between those supporting the Boxers and those favouring conciliation, which was led by Prince Qing. The supreme commander of the Chinese forces, the Manchu general Ronglu, later claimed he acted to protect the foreigners. While this situation was developing in and around Beijing, officials in the southern provinces ignored the imperial order to fight against foreigners. The trade in international affairs continued its daily activities with foreigners in the leading cities of the south. The Eight-Nation Alliance, after initially being halted in their march on Beijing by the Imperial Chinese military and militias of Boxers, brought 20,000 armed soldiers to China. They defeated the Imperial Army in Tianjin and arrived in Beijing on the 14th of August, relieving the 55-day siege of the international legations. Plunder and looting of the capital and the surrounding countryside ensued, along with the summary execution of those suspected of being Boxers in retribution. The Boxer Protocol of the 7th of September 1901 provided for the execution of government officials who had supported the Boxers and for foreign soldiers to be stationed in Beijing. Compensation in the form of tribute of 450 million taels of silver. A tael was equivalent to 1.3 ounces. This was more than the Chinese government's annual tax revenue was to be paid over the next 39 years to the 8 invading nations. The Qing dynasty's handling of the Boxer Rebellion further weakened their control over China, which ultimately led to reforms in the final years of the dynasty. Background to the events of the rebellion. Christian missionary activity. The opening up of China in the 1860s helped facilitate the great effort to Christianize China. Building on old French foundations, the Roman Catholic establishment totaled by 1894 around 750 European missionaries, 400 native priests, and over 500,000 Chinese residents to convert to the Christian faith. By 1894, the newer Protestant mission supported over 1,300 missionaries, mainly British and American, and maintained around 500 stations, each with a church, residences, street chapels, and often a small school, a hospital, or dispensary in about 350 cities and towns. Despite these numbers, the Protestant Church had less than 60,000 Chinese converts to their version of Christianity. There was limited success in terms of converts and establishing schools in a nation of, at that time, about 400 million people. The missions faced escalating anger directed at the threat of cultural imperialism. The main result of this anger came in the form of the Boxer Rebellion, in which missions were attacked and thousands of Chinese Christians massacred to destroy those Western influences. Origin of the Boxers. The righteous and harmonious fists began in the inland sections of the coastal province of Shandong. Shandong had long been a region plagued by social unrest, religious sects, and martial societies. American Christian missionaries are believed to have been the first to refer to the well-trained athletic young men as boxers because of their affiliation to martial arts, which they practiced in addition to weapons training. Their primary practice was a type of spiritual possession which involved the whirling of swords, violent prostrations, and incantations to deities. The opportunity to fight against Western encroachment was especially attractive to the young, often unemployed men, many of whom were teenagers. The tradition of possession and invulnerability went back several hundred years, but took on special meaning against the new powerful weapons of the West. The Boxers, armed with rifles and swords, claimed supernatural invulnerability against cannons, rifle shots, and knife attacks. The Boxer groups popularly claimed that millions of soldiers would descend out of heaven to assist them in purifying China of foreign oppression. Boxers demonstrated their invulnerability to new initiates by firing guns loaded with blank rounds at one another. In 1895, despite ambivalence towards their heterodox practices, Yu Xian, a Manchu who was at that time the prefect of Sao Prefecture, would later become the provincial governor, cooperated with the Big Sword Society, a group whose original purpose was to fight bandits. The German Catholic missionaries of the Society of the Divine Word had built up their presence in the area, partially by taking in a significant portion of converts who were in need of protection from the law. On one occasion in 1895, a large gang of bandits, defeated by the Big Sword Society, claimed to be Catholics to avoid prosecution. Historian Paul Cohen remarked that the line between Christians and bandits became increasingly indistinct. The Big Sword Society responded by attacking Catholic properties and burning them. As a result of diplomatic pressure in the capital, Yu Xian executed several Big Sword leaders but did not punish anyone else. A result of this action led to more secret martial arts societies emerging. In the early years of the Boxer movement, there was a variety of village activities, not one broad movement with a united purpose. Martial folk religious societies such as the Bagwadao or 8 trigrams prepared the way for the Boxers groups such as the Red Boxing School or the Plum Flower tradition. The Boxers of Shandong were more involved with traditional social and moral values such as filial piety than they were with foreign influences. One leader, Zhu Hendong, began as a wandering healer, specializing in treating skin ulcers. and gained wide respect for refusing payment for his treatments. Zhu claimed he descended from the emperors of the Ming dynasty, as he shared the same surname as that dynasty's royal family. He further announced his goal was to revive the Qing and destroy the foreigners. The enemy was seen as foreign influence, and that the primary devils were the Christian missionaries, while the secondary devils were the Chinese that had converted to Christianity, and in their opinion they had to repent, be driven out, or be killed. What were the causes of the escalation? There were multiple causes for the Boxer Rebellion, namely escalating tensions that caused the Chinese to turn against the foreign devils that were engaged in the scramble for China during the late 19th century. The success of the Western powers at controlling China, together with growing anti-imperialist sentiment and extreme weather conditions, all contributed to the spark that ignited the movement. A drought, followed by floods in Shandong province in 1897-98, forced a multitude of farmers to flee to cities in search of food and work. Another major source of discontent within northern China was missionary activity. The Boxers opposed German missionaries in Shandong, as well as in the German concession in Qingdao. The Treaty of Tientsin and the Convention of Peking, both signed in 1860 after the Second Opium War, had granted foreign missionaries the freedom to preach anywhere in China and to buy land on which they could build their churches. There was a strong public indignation over the dispossession of Chinese temples that were replaced by Catholic churches, which were viewed as deliberately anti-feng shui. A further cause of discontent among Chinese people was the destruction of Chinese burial sites to make way for the railways and telegraph lines constructed by the Germans. The German authority, in response to Chinese protests against these measures, was often to simply shoot the protesters. Another contribution to the Boxers' rebellion was put down to the economic conditions in Shandong. The province's economy focused significantly on the production of cotton, which was severely hampered through the importation of foreign cotton. The German Catholic priest George Stenz, who allegedly serially raped Chinese women in Juya County in Shandong, was at the center of what became known as the Juya Incident. Chinese rebels set out to kill Stenz while he slept, but at the time of the attack, Stenz was not found, while two other missionaries were murdered in their beds. The German Navy's East Asia Squadron was dispatched to occupy Jiaozhou Bay on the southern coast of the Shandong Peninsula. In December 1897, Wilhelm II, the German Kaiser, declared his intent to seize territory in China. This declaration triggered a scramble for concessions by Britain, France, Russia and Japan to secure their own spheres of influence in China. Germany gained exclusive control over development loans, mining and railway ownership in Shandong province, while Russia gained influence over all Chinese territory north of the Great Wall, in addition to tax exemptions for trade in Mongolia and Xinjiang, and economic powers similar to that of Germany over the Fengtian, Jilin and Heilongjiang. France gained influence of Yunnan, most of Guangxi and Guangdong, while Japan had control of Fujian province. Great Britain had influence over the whole Yangtze Valley and was defined as provinces adjoining the Yangtze, as well as Henan and Zhejiang, parts of Guangdong and Guangxi provinces and part of Tibet. Additionally, Italy requested control of Zhejiang province, but this was declined by the Chinese government. The above did not include the lease and concession territories where the foreign powers had full authority. The Russian government militarily occupied their zone and imposed their law and schools. They also seized mining and logging privileges, settled their citizens into those areas, and established their own municipal administration on several cities within their control. Escalation of the rebellion. In October 1898, a group of Boxers attacked the Christian community of Liuantun village, where a temple to the Jade Emperor had been converted into a Catholic church. Disputes over this act had surrounded the church since its conversion in 1869, when the temple had been given to the Christian residents of the village. The incident was the first time the Boxers used the phrase "Support the Qing, destroy the foreigners," a slogan that later characterized the Boxers. The Boxers referred to themselves as the Militia United in Righteousness for the first time in October 1899 at the Battle of Senlua Temple, which was a clash between Boxers and soldiers of the Qing government. By using the word militia rather than Boxers, they distanced themselves from forbidden martial arts sects and tried to give their movement the legitimacy of a group that was defending orthodoxy. Violence directed towards missionaries and Christians drew sharp responses from diplomats protecting their citizens. Those responses included the seizure of harbours and forts, as well as the deployment of soldiers in preparation for war. Other measures included taking control of additional land by force or the coercion of long-term leases from the Qing. In 1899, the French minister in Beijing helped the missionaries to obtain an edict granting official status to local priests that supported their people in any legal or family disputes that bypassed the local laws. After the German government took control of Shandong, many Chinese feared that the foreign missionaries and possibly all Christian activities were imperialist attempts at colonizing China piece by piece. The feeling of one Chinese official, summed up in a few words, was simply, "Take away your missionaries and your opium, and you will be welcome." The inevitable conflict began. In 1899, the Boxer Rebellion developed into a mass movement. The previous year, during the 100 Days Reform, progressive Chinese reformers persuaded the Guangxu Emperor to engage in modernization efforts, but this was suppressed by the Empress Dowager Cixi and Yuan Shikai, leading the Qing political elite, struggling to regain its power. The Qing government came to view the Boxers as a means to help oppose those foreign powers. The national crisis was widely perceived as being caused by the foreign aggression, although afterwards the majority of Chinese citizens were grateful for the actions of the alliance. For the reality was, the Qing government was later seen as corrupt. Common people faced extortion from that government's officials, while the government offered no protection to its people against the violent actions of the Boxers. That brings us to the end of this video, highlighting the historical era that has helped shape China today. If you have enjoyed watching and it's shown you a little detail of life and events here in China, then your subscribing to my channel would mean a lot to me. Thank you for watching. Make sure you click on the link to the next video, and until the next time, goodbye for now.